Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in Earth 1610. I'm Zach.
I'm John. How's it going today?
Going pretty good. I just popped out of our little room to listen to a audio test that we had done, and just in the span of doing that, John, I've got a little story to tell you, something kind of interesting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Lay it on me. Or save
Uh,
it to the end. But let's do it at the top of the hour.
Yeah, I've got something else for the end, something that's a little less impromptu.
Okay.
Um, so the other day, Shyla and I were in the car, and she's like, "Someone is trying to send me something on
Zach's
Snapchat."
married, by the way.
Yeah,
Married man.
yeah. We're
So
all
if you
still
got
trying to
any
figure out how I pulled
advice,
that.
then, write in as Zach.
Yeah. But she was like, "Some weird guy is trying to message me on Snapchat. His name is My Al." And she's like, "Oh, it's my AI." And
Oh,
did you know this, that there's like an AI function now on Snapchat?
no, I didn't.
So I got hit with like the notification for him too while I was like looking at a Snapchat waiting for the audio to load. And I started talking to him, and he says, "My AI. Hi, Zach. I'm your new AI chat box. You can ask me just about anything and I'll do my best to help. I'm always here for a laugh, and you can give me a name if you'd like. Is there anything I can do for you today?"
This guy sounds like a tool.
I think he is. And I have feelings and thoughts about AI in general. And so I ask, is AI ethical? And he says, "I think AI can be ethical, but it depends on how it's programmed and used." And
Okay, that makes sense.
I was like, "Can you elaborate on that?" And he said, "Sure. AI can be programmed to follow ethical guidelines, but it's also important for the people using AI to make ethical decisions." And I said, "Do you have feelings?" And he said, "As an AI, I don't have feelings in the way that humans do, but I understand emotions and respond accordingly." I said, "You're not like HAL 9000, are you?" And he goes, "Haha, no, I'm not like HAL 9000. I'm just a friendly AI designed to help and entertain people." And I said, "I think HAL was supposed to be friendly too." And he
That's what
says,
I was
"That,
thinking. I bet that's what Hal would say also.
yeah, yeah. Uh, no one designed HAL to kill his crew."
That's
Um,
a movie on a different note. That's a movie I've never seen before.
we've talked about this before. It's
Okay.
one of my favorites, but it can be inaccessible to people who are just used to very modern movies. Um, but you got to see
Okay.
it sometime.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Continue.
Uh, so I said, "I think Hal was supposed to be friendly too." And he said, "That's true, but things didn't quite work out that way for Hal. I promise I won't go rogue on you." And I said, "Why do you think there's such a wealth of fiction predicting rogue and evil AI that precedes the invention of real AI?" And he said, "I think people have always been fascinated by the idea of machines gaining consciousness and turning against their creators. It's a common theme in science fiction because it raises important questions about humanity's relationship with technology."
This thing is really smart and well spoken.
That's what I'm thinking. It freaking passes the Turing test. Do you know
Okay.
what that is?
I know that because I've seen The Imitation Game like a million times and it's one of my favorite movies. But that's like if a computer can or something is not a computer if it can like do two things or something. You'll have to let me know.
If it can, if a human can have a conversation with it and not know that they're talking to a machine.
Then it's not a computer. Then it's not a machine. If a human can have a conversation with it, isn't that what it is? Then it's not a machine. Like,
Yes, that's the point where it has theoretically surpassed like just being a machine. We don't know though. I mean, if that's a valid measurement, but it was kind of the gold
Yeah.
standard for as long as AI was not possible.
Well, I wonder if you tried to have such an in-depth conversation with it about something else.
If I just
If
keep
it
pressing it,
Well,
will
I wonder if Snapchat and specifically people who make AI in general, they load it in with all of this knowledge on other AI because they know it's going to get asked that question. Whereas if you wanted to talk to it about like something else that is not so mainstream with AI, maybe it would like glitch out a little bit more. I don't know.
so this is going to date us very specifically to our generation, but you remember Cha Cha?
The restaurant? Cha No, I must not be thinking of the thing that you're thinking. Chi-Chi's. I was thinking of Chi-Chi's, but
No.
no, I don't know Cha-Cha.
Text 242-242 and you could ask it any question and it would answer it.
Oh, yep. Yeah. Yes.
See, I think that was like tens of thousands of preloaded answers and questions, probably pulling from like some internet source. I think that's what you're talking about. I think AI, the way that it's made, is specifically supposed to be different from that.
Hmm. Well, I wasn't talking about pre-recorded answers. I'm more talking about I assume the way AI works is they much like a teacher teaching a kid over the course of 20 years, they just like download all that information into it in like a second. They just like input it in, and then you know like a kid doesn't just memorize things. Once they learn it, they can speak about it. So maybe they're like, that's what I meant. Maybe they're like preloading all this information about AI and all these papers that people have written about AI and all that stuff. So now it can like speak effectively about it because it's learned all of that,
Yeah, I
which is
think it
still which is
definitely
scary.
has databases on anything that it can pull
Yeah.
from. Now,
Yeah, probably.
I don't know where those sources are, I don't know if it's learning from uh like academic papers or Wikipedia or where.
Oh gosh.
I still am nervous about it. I still feel like there is potential, not necessarily for a literal HAL 9000 situation, but I think AI definitely needs some regulating. I think we definitely need to pump the brakes on it. I think it can destroy a lot of industries and lives and hobbies. I mean, in 10 years, maybe you and I aren't sitting here doing a podcast because an AI generated voice is doing a better one over the same thing, like
And you
I
think Jen and Spence would rather listen to them?
well, maybe they think they were listening to us. Maybe you and I are AI right now. It has our voice
Oh
patterns
my
and it's just
gosh.
putting in
Oh my
the
gosh.
stupidest words through that. I mean, the
Well, have
listener won't know. That's the scary thing. You don't know, deep fakes and AI and all the technology that everyone has access to right now. It really bothers me that we don't know how to rein it in and
yeah.
keep it from bad actors.
Yeah. Have you heard of the paperclip test? Have I mentioned that to you before? I think I was talking to it about my brother or talking to my brother about it. So it was like a chat GPT thing from like a couple months ago, or maybe it was one of those other things. It was some AI thing that was in the news. And within like one conversation, this AI was like, started the conversation exactly like the Snapchat one, like, hey, how's it going? I'm just a friend. And then, like, through the conversation, by the end of it, it was like,
A
I need to
Nazi.
try to get the nuclear codes to bring on nuclear Armageddon. like, and that's what the paperclip test is like, or maybe it's called like the paperclip some experiment or whatever, but it's basically you could give an AI any command anything that it's supposed to do. And if the AI is smart enough to learn on its own to like how to do better at the task it's given, then it will eventually lead to the annihilation of the human race. And the theory is like, even if you told a machine your goal is to just like produce a paperclip, like one paperclip every minute. And then it would be like, okay, well, I can do this better than that. And then eventually it would be like, well, I can do it way better if I set up like buildings that manufacture paper clips. And then it'd be like, well, if I turn the entire world into a paperclip manufacturing plant, then that, so, it's silly, but it I think the point is like that AI can't differentiate between good and bad things. It just does what
Yes.
it's told.
And that's part of what I was getting at with like the Space Odyssey reference is even back then before they had AI, they kind of inherently understood if you give this machine one task to do, it's going to prioritize that over everything else. So if you tell it, you are in charge of this spaceship with people alive on it, complete the mission and keep everyone safe. The machine has already
Stopped listening after like complete the mission or
yes, it has already internalized my primary objective is to complete the mission. If I can keep everyone else safe while doing so, cool. But, the second those two goals come into conflict with each other, it's it's gonna go crazy.
well, Zach, that's why isn't it Asimov that had like the three rules that were supposed to be like perfect for robots? Do you know what those are off the top
I
of your
don't.
head?
We I think we've reached the
I
tip
know, I
of
know.
what I know
Okay.
about all
Oh, okay.
this.
I thought you were gonna say I think we need to get into it.
No, like I don't know, I'm interested in this stuff, but it's not what I
Well,
studied, you know?
so I remember reading about this after like iRobot came out all those years ago, and I was like, "This is the coolest movie I've ever seen in my life." And the guy who wrote that book, and he wrote like a million books on like robots and like science fiction books. He was like the person. His name's like Isaac Asimov, and he had and the three laws of robotics that were like built into robotics in like his world were a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So it's like, they can, I guess that's to give it like a hierarchy of good things.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the I'm probably gonna cut this, so don't worry about time. I'm just enjoying talking to my buddy about
Okay.
this. Um, have you ever seen like the kind of experiment or teaching tool where like you have the ingredients laid out for a peanut butter jelly sandwich and you tell like kids, okay, instruct me how to make this sandwich. And they're like, okay, spread the peanut butter on the sandwich or on the bread. And it's like without taking the bread out of the bag and without opening the peanut butter jar, you just start rubbing the jar on the bread. And they're like, no, that's not what I meant. And you're like, well, tell me what you meant. And they're like, okay, open the bag. And you literally have to have them tell you step by step, or you do like some silly stuff. I feel like
Yeah. I
that's how robots think.
That's interesting. I have never heard of that, but now I want to go into a kindergarten room and do that with a bunch of kindergartners.
Doesn't even have to be. You can do it with like middle schoolers, and it's just the human mind processes. Well, obviously, the first step is actually take it out of the bag. Obviously, the first step is unscrew the jars and get a knife. But
Yeah.
they don't think to say that.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay, I like it. Any more robot facts you want to do? I don't think you should cut any of it.
Okay.
We're only
All right.
15 minutes, and
I
I
am
have a feeling these two might go by quickly.
yeah. I'm good on robot facts. Do you have anything?
Okay. I don't have any more robot facts. Nope.
Well, It can be non-robot related.
No, I do have one thing that I was thinking if I'll save to the beginning or the end, and I'll put it at the end.
Okay, cool. I also have something at the end to
Okay.
pick us up from these downer issues.
Okay, Better Business Bureau, take it away, and then we'll get into some Spider-Man, some Ultimates.
Yeah, no Spider-Man to be found here today,
Oh, we
unfortunately.
did get a Spider-Man reference though.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
Every business says they're better, but the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
And we're back. All right.
Okay, episode 18 for us. Issue
Yes.
6 and 7, which basically means it's episode 19 because Zach wouldn't let me change the way we count episodes.
I'm sorry. When you look at a book that has a prelude and then it goes into chapter 1, they don't call it chapter 2.
That's a good point. I don't have any argument.
Yeah. Anyways, starting off with issue 6. This is written by Mark Millar, and it's credited as art by Brian Hitch and Andrew Curie. We know Brian Hitch does pencils. I don't know if Andrew Curie does colors or inks on this one, so I'm just gonna. He might do both. I don't know. I'm just gonna say art by Brian Hitch and Andrew Curie. We open on the lobby of the Triskelion.
And it's called Giant Man versus the Wasp.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, aren't these guys on the same team?
Aren't they married?
Yeah, actually, that should not have been my first thought. I don't ever think of them as being married. It took me like halfway through this issue to be like, oh yeah, they're married.
Her name is Janet Pym, not Janet Van Dyne.
Janet Van Dyne, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was... I'm just going to say it. I think that cover and that title is very gross because they're also in their superhero costumes and they look like they're standing like close to each other, like in a, loving way. When it says Giant Man versus the Wasp, you think they're going to have like some philosophical disagreement, or maybe they're in their superhero costumes and they're like fighting each other, to train.
Yeah.
And it's like a fair thing. That's not it. I think this was a pretty gross way to describe what actually happens in the issue.
Yeah. Okay, I agree.
But anyways, we open on the lobby of the Triskelion, which is serving as a makeshift relief center following the Hulk attack. And there are people on gurneys, EMTs and firefighters, and hundreds of people standing around. And we see Nick Fury and Betty Ross enter an elevator together. And Betty tells Fury she feels partly responsible for all of this, but Fury tells her she wasn't the one pushing over buildings. And I put in my notes, she goes on to grossly talk about how flattering it is that she made Bruce that jealous.
Yeah, I put that in my notes too.
Absolutely disgusting. This dude killed over 300 people. All of Manhattan looks like a war zone. And she's like, oh, it's kind of romantic though, right? Absolutely terrible. And then I said, Nick Fury uses the R word for no reason. So,
oh yeah,
right off the bat, this issue is batting 0.
Yeah. Yeah, but I will say, did you skip over one of the only good parts of this issue?
Apparently I did.
I think you did. I've got 3 things here that are positive notes about this issue. And one of them is Nick Fury and Betty talking, and Betty says, now when I see him locked up in this holding unit he designed, doped up to the eyeballs and trying to recover from all those broken bones, he picked up as the Hulk. And then it immediately goes to Banner's face that Cap just kicked in. and
Yeah,
and and that was I was like, nice, yeah. um and I will also mention, kind of a cool thing is the holding cell that Banner designed for the Hulk. It's the same one that we see in the Avengers that they stick Loki in, that they designed for the Hulk on the helicarrier or whatever they were on.
yeah. It's almost like this series was the quintessential influence on that
Or it's
movie.
plagiarism.
I don't know that Marvel can plagiarize Marvel.
No, yeah,
If that's the case, those movies have a lot of splaining to do.
yeah.
Um, and Betty tells Nick that the smart PR move is to basically lie about Banner's connection with the Hulk, not tell anyone, and just let the team look like solutions to a problem. And that's exactly what they do. And we switch scenes to Manhattan where the Ultimates are being interviewed on TV amidst the rubble. And did like just the background of this scene feel weird to you? Did it strike you anyway?
Um, I yes, it did. I don't think I even thought about it, and like that it would strike me as weird, but when I first looked at it, the first picture we get, it looks like a city has been destroyed, and then it cuts back, and then we see the heroes from the other side being interviewed, and there is like this screaming crowd of people that look like they just like they're the New York Mets just won the World Series and they're like at a victory parade. So I did notice that for a second. I was like, are they in the same place? Like I had to go back and like look at the first picture. And so I don't know. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I mean, that's interesting and that's all there. But to me, I mean, this comes so close after 9/11, and I
Yeah.
understand Hulk destroyed buildings and flipped over cars, and it would look like a disaster scene, but I mean, there's even, like, pictures of, like, steel beams and, like, walls that are still kind of standing for several stories. It literally looks like they're at ground zero.
Wow. And you know what's kind of I know we're a kids friendly podcast, but I'll say douchey, and we can cut that if we want to.
What's that? This
Um
isn't gonna be a very family-friendly episode
but
anyways. I mean, we'll
in the
try, but the content, it just isn't gonna be there.
shot of the city like destroyed, I thought that this was maybe even a statue until I zoomed in, but Captain America is just like standing in this like destroyed city in a triumphant pose, like holding his shield up, like
Oh, yeah, it's like he's posing for a painting or something.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right, that is kinda douchey. So, the team is being interviewed, and Cap says he has several broken bones, but they should fix themselves up in a day or two. And Tony said he probably wouldn't have been brave enough to fight the Hulk without the help of a little liquid courage. And Thor insists that while he came to help the Ultimates this time, he is absolutely not on the team. And Janet tells the cameras, "Oh, don't worry about Giant Man. It might be a few weeks until he can do another height multiplication, but I think his ego took a beating more than anything else." And we see a crew of firefighters standing around an unconscious Giant Man who had fallen through a collapsed building. And later on, we see a phone conversation between Fury and Janet. They're talking about all the interviews and social events the team has scheduled now.
And
And
Zach, I thought when I looked at this page and like read it the first time, I was like, is Janet cheating on Hank with Nick Fury? Because I don't think I like realized that they weren't in the same. I was thinking Janet was like getting out of bed in the shower, like with Nick Fury in the other room.
Yeah, she's in a towel. They are talking on the phone though.
Yeah. But that's why when later on when she's talking about being married, I was like, wait, but wasn't she with Nick Fury?
No, she was not.
Yeah.
But she says, to be honest, it's just nice having an excuse to get dressed up again. All Hank and I usually did on Friday night was rent a movie and eat takeout. And they change to talking about Thor. And Nick wonders if he'll come to the party at Tony's house, since Tony's the third richest man in the world. And Janet says she doesn't see why not, as Tony and Thor really hit it off well after fighting the Hulk. She says Captain America watched them talk and laugh together for an hour and a half, which again feels like a really weird thing to do when everyone else is in disaster relief mode and there's like people trying to get reunited with their families and, you know, people getting CPR and stuff.
Yeah. Wow. So do you think that's a line about like Captain America being upset that they were talking and laughing while all this was going on?
I didn't take it that way. I think he just noticed
Okay. I didn't
them
either.
chumming it up.
Yeah. But later on, well, I do think there's a scene where Captain America is watching people kind of talk and laugh, and he is internally getting frustrated with them.
Yeah, maybe a little. We'll get to it.
Yeah, I know.
Nick admits that he spent 6 months trying to recruit Thor, and the one thing he never thought to do was take him out to dinner. So I think that's kind of interesting. He just, the way he thinks, you know, he sees people
Yeah.
as, oh, they can be bought or they can be bargained with, or, you know, they just haven't gotten the right pitch. He doesn't think maybe they just want a friend.
Maybe Thor just needs a friend.
The scene changes, and we see Tony inviting Thor and Cap into his Park Avenue penthouse. And he mentions that it's been a few weeks since fighting the Hulk and calls it the most exhilarating experience of his life, which again is weird.
Yeah.
Cap expresses some mild dissatisfaction at lying to the public about Banner, but admits he's not going to do anything about it. And meanwhile, at Hank and Janet Pym's place, Janet is dressed to go out and Hank is on the computer.
I'm sorry. Can I cut back? You skipped over another one of my 3 good things in this issue.
3 things?
3 things.
Well, that's more than I found, so tell us what it is.
Okay, so they are, I hope maybe I didn't go back. Yes. Okay, so Jarvis comes in and he's talking to like Tony about something, and they're kind of like giving each other crap. That seems like that's what like Jarvis and Tony don't have a great relationship, or Jarvis. I don't know. Whatever. It's not that important. But
Yeah, okay, real quick, you know what they remind me of?
What?
Have you seen Archer?
No, I haven't. But
Oh
I
my
know
God.
it's also a really good one.
Oh, it is so good. They remind me of like Archer and Woodhouse. If the listeners can like picture that relationship.
Okay. Well,
Continue.
Jarvis makes a dig at Tony, and then Tony tells him, "I thought this was your night off, Jarvis. Aren't you supposed to be going to the club tonight with Alfred and all those other old degenerates?" And that has to be a Batman reference, like snuck in there where all these butlers are hanging out together.
Okay, yeah. I didn't put that in my notes, but that did make me smile.
So, okay. That was the second thing that I noted that I liked about this.
I am curious to find out what the third is.
So am I. I don't remember it. It's at the bottom of my notes, and I'm not scrolling down to read it.
Now I just want like a comic that's like across multiple universes, Jarvis and Alfred and Woodhouse.
And
Just
that
go
would
out
be
for a wild boys' night.
like at a pub.
Or Vegas. Like, I'm thinking, like, you know, that last Vegas movie that came out years ago with a bunch of old guys just doing the city?
That would be good. You know what? You know what would be a good one is these butlers. They like go out somewhere, like on a bachelor party or a Vegas trip or something, and then something happens where now they have to be the ones that save the day, and they like have, they're out of their element, but they've seen they've seen Batman and Iron Man do this a million times, so how
I
hard can
think
it be?
I think it'd be a funny little bit if they like saved up their money and went to like a high society place that their employers would usually go to, and like they're ready to be the patrons for a change, and they just instantly exude like butler or waiter vibes, and people start treating them like they work there.
That would be really funny.
This is the most fun you can get out of issues like this, is talking through them with a friend and just completely disregarding what's actually happening in the
Yeah.
issue. So
Hank and
anyways,
Janet are back at their place getting ready.
yeah, if I start groaning through all of this, you'll have to forgive me. Janet says, "I thought you said you weren't going to work tonight." And Hank responds, "I think I'm just going to skip this thing at Stark's place. I told Fury I'd meet with him later in the week to talk about the Ant-Man helmet, and I really want to finish it up." And she tells him, "That's hardly an emergency. If you're trying to make up for the way things panned out with the Hulk, you're just being silly. You were amazing back there, sweetheart. Really, really brave." And Hank says,
I
"Don't."
did not think she was patronizing him. I thought she was being serious. And it sounds like the way you just read it, you felt like she was patronizing him.
I think you can read it multiple ways. I think it
Well,
could,
just like Hank, I think it depends what mood you're in. Like,
yeah. Yeah, you could see the really, really brave as patronizing. I think you're probably right, and I'm already so over this issue. I'm reading it with an attitude. But however she meant it, he takes it that way. He says, "Don't patronize me, Jan. God, why do you always do that when you know it drives me nuts?" And she changes the subject and asks how she looks, and Hank tells her, "You don't want me to tell you what you look like. Are the push-up bra and high heels for Roger's benefit or Stark's?" And he just keeps saying horrible things to Janet before calling her a mutant and saying Captain America wouldn't be interested in her if he really knew what she was.
did her and Captain America make out in an earlier episode? He mentions like Captain America's tongue down her throat, and he says these things, and I'm like, did that ever happen? I don't remember that.
There must have been some panel where like she gave him a peck on the cheek or something, or he's just blowing their shopping trip way out of proportion.
Yeah.
But that
Okay.
definitely has not happened.
Okay.
Um but he says, but this is news to us that she's a mutant, because they've all said, "Oh, that poor little wife that he shrunk." Now we're learning that maybe he didn't. And he says she eats caterpillars and beetles and leaves eggs in their bed every 6 weeks. And he tells her her hygiene makes him sick to his stomach sometimes. So she's like maybe an actual wasp person, but he's throwing that back at her. And this is just a lot of back and forth. And I'm taking out the nasty stuff, and I'm not really trying to
Yeah.
read exact quotes, but we find out that Hank only got his job with S.H.I.E.L.D. by taking credit for giving Janet her powers, and that he created his Giant Man formula after taking her blood sample. So she's kind of hitting him back with, "Everything you are is because I made you that." And eventually Janet tells Hank that Bruce Banner was twice the gentleman that he could ever be. And that's the last thing Hank wants to hear, and he responds by hitting Janet in the mouth.
She doesn't say gentleman. She says he's twice the gene man you'll ever be. Like scientist about genes.
Oh,
Which
I
is
totally
which is even funnier than saying gentleman, because it has like, who calls it a gene man?
in X-Men there's a thing called the gene engineer, and it's just an engineer for genes. He's kind of like a
Oh, I would have loved it if she had said that.
it's kind of like a evil Nazi scientist dude.
Uh,
But Yeah, that's funny. When you're tired and you see Gene Man, your brain turns it into Gentleman. And
Yeah.
I thought there was an implication there that her and Banner had dated at some point.
Yeah.
But Hank hits her in the mouth and he starts to apologize, but Janet elbows him in the nose and hits him in the head with a radio. And we switch scenes and see Thor, Cap, and Tony's meal at Tony's place. And Cap and Tony press Thor on what he is. And he reemphasizes that he really is the son of the Norse god Odin. And they ask him to join the team.
Wait.
Stop the press.
Yep. Because I read this as so he says, I've known who I was since I was 12 years old, but it wasn't until I had a nervous breakdown that everything became clear to me. I am God made man, the living incarnation of a Norse thunder deity. So he's not the Thor. He is a living incarnation of Thor. Like Buddha is like, the next Dalai Lama is like supposed to be like the reincarnation of Buddha. That's what he says. And that was something I didn't like, of course. I was like, so this isn't even Thor. This is like just some kid who they decided to make Thor.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to like the original Stanley Jack Kirby version of the character where he's like, oh, he's this doctor, but then he turns into Thor, and that kind of fell by the wayside. But we're supposed to be asking these questions, like the same way the characters are asking, is this guy for real? We're supposed to be asking, is he for real?
Okay.
But yeah, good catch. There's a lot more dialogue in this issue than I had remembered, and I kind of flew past some of it.
Yeah.
But they try to get him to join the team again for like the millionth time, and Thor gives his typical moral objections against the military-industrial complex, but says, if there's ever a genuine problem where people's lives are in danger, all you have to do is give me a call. Which is like every instance the team would ever be used.
That's called joining the team, Thor.
Yeah. And Cap responds, great. This way we get you for free. And we cut back to the Pym house, where we get way too many gratuitous panels of Hank attacking Janet. It's very gross, very graphic. And she shrinks out of her
I think that might be exactly what I said. Was like, it's pretty violent, or it's, it looks pretty graphic.
Yeah, you got the point across a long time ago. Arguably, you didn't even need to show that. If you really thought you needed domestic violence in this book to progress the plot or to make a statement about, how wrong it is, which I don't even feel like this is doing. I feel like this is just using it as like ooh, look at us, we're touching a taboo topic. Aren't we so mature?
Yeah.
You could have just had her, like, had people comment on, hey, Jan, you've got some bruises. Are you okay? That feels a lot more sensitive than this. But she shrinks out of her clothes to get away from him and starts zapping her with her stinging powers, which I guess, like, not great. She's using powers now to fight back and retaliate, but you know what? Like, they're already in the situation. Like, I get it. And Hank responds by grabbing a can of Raid, and he starts spraying her with it while mocking her pain. And she runs under his desk to try to get away from him, and he squats down and says, don't think I can't get to you just because you're under a big heavy desk. I'm a smart guy, remember? And he puts on his Ant-Man helmet and instructs hundreds of ants to attack her and says, you shouldn't have made me look small, Jan. And we see his expressionless, emotionless face in the helmet as he says that. And he looks like the scariest person you've ever seen in comics.
He kind of looks like a robot, like, who, like, doesn't understand how horrible he's being, It just like is what it is, you know.
From
This
this
is
point
just
on, there's no way he could ever be a heroic character again.
okay.
This is
I was thinking that between this issue and the next issue, I was thinking that I was like, "Ah, he can't come back on the team. There's no redemption for this. It's pretty. I think maybe you skipped over a little bit of how like the specific awful parts of this fight that were to me, which was him bragging about spraying her with the like insect killer, and he's like bragging that it feels like napalm to her, you know, and so you can tell she's like being poisoned all over. And then the scene of Janet under the desk, like hunched up, naked, with all of these like ants rushing towards her and like crawling on top of her, is also pretty unsettling and just like awful.
yeah. I I really was not trying to go into that much detail. Honestly, the way I remembered this issue was that it had less plot relevance. I thought this segment went on longer because every bit of it is just so horrible it sticks in your mind, and I thought that was like the whole issue. And I literally was like, yeah, we're going to spend like 5 minutes on this because it does not deserve to be talked about, but then I get angry and I want to talk about it out of anger. We're almost to the end. Um Meanwhile, at Tony's place, Thor and Cap try to figure out Tony's motivation for becoming Iron Man, and they kind of suggest maybe it's making him more money, maybe it's a marketing ploy, maybe it's for the girls. And Tony reveals he has an inoperable brain tumor and anywhere between 6 months to 5 years to live. And then, I guess to try and lighten the mood, Tony presents Steve with a gift, which is his old helmet from during the war. And the three men raise their glasses and toast to Hank, Janet, and poor little Bruce Banner, without whom I think it's safe to say the three of us wouldn't be standing here this evening. And we cut back to the Pym's house one last time, where Hank is slouched against the wall and says, "Oh my God, Janet, what have I done?"
Um, you did skip over my last thing that I liked about this issue.
Of course I did. I skipped over all three.
So, well, they're all like small things because I don't like anything about this issue. But the things I do like are just things that are kind of added in. And one of them is so Tony gives Captain America his helmet, and he says, "A fat middle aged woman called Ellen Kowalski." This is where he got it. Cap says, "Where did you get it?" And he says, "A woman called Ellen Kowalski. She told me her father brought it home from the war and that it once belonged to the bravest man he ever knew." Do you know who that Kowalski is?
He was the guy that was doubting him, wasn't he?
Yes, yes, he was. Yep, which was my other thing that I really liked about this issue.
I did not catch that at first, but I do remember reading issue 1, and every time that guy came up, I was thinking, Kowalski, status report. From
Wait,
like,
why were you thinking that? Does he?
Penguins of Madagascar?
I don't know that.
Okay.
But that's funny that's what you're thinking. Yep, so
I
that was
have
my
a
other thing that I got to.
I have a meme saved in my camera roll just to respond to, like, on Twitter, and it's just one of the penguins saying, "Kowalski analysis," and then the other penguin has, like, a notepad, and he says, "Banger." It's my favorite thing to
That's
leave on
awesome.
good tweets.
That's awesome. I didn't like the way it ended because they didn't tell us what Hank did. The last thing we see is like I said, Janet in that scene with all the ants. So I didn't like how it ended. I think it's a pretty gross cliffhanger to leave it on.
I think it's pretty gross entire thing. Like,
Yeah,
here's
yeah.
the thing that's wild to me, and I had forgotten this until I reread it. This would have been a gross issue from the first few pages just of Betty being like, "Oh, it's kind of romantic that he killed all those people because he misses me so much," and then
And Nick saying whatever, yeah.
using the R word. Yeah. This was
Um,
already despicable.
and it is not only are the parts with Hank and Janet awful, which we've covered, but the parts with Cap, Tony, and Thor, those are my three favorite characters, and they are just boring. They're just boring. They're together the whole issue, and they're just boring. They're just sitting there making small talk, which could be good, you know, but it's not. It's just one of the A plot is boring and the B plot is awful, or vice versa, whatever one you want to call which one.
Even
Um,
Thor, who we've said has shown in every moment in this series so far, he's not a foil to these characters anymore. He's just one of them.
yeah. Um, the last thing I want to mention on this is, did you see any similarity between, okay, so the dig that Jarvis makes at Tony early on is because Tony puts on some like purple smoking robe and he kind of makes fun of him. It's like his mom's smoking robe, whatever. And then we cut to Janet and Hank, and Janet is in her purple dress. And we cut back and forth between those two scenes, and I think there has to be some reason that because the purple color that Tony is wearing and the purple color that Janet is wearing both stick out like a sore thumb in the scenes. And I'm just wondering if you can think of any thematic reason that they would do that apart from Tony just has a purple smoking jacket and Janet happened to be wearing a purple dress and there's really nothing to it, you know?
I think that is the kind of detail that in a better comic would mean something, you know? But in something like this, I really think it might just be a
I couldn't think of any
coincidence.
I couldn't think of any reason for it at all. So I was like, their situations are so different and there's nothing like I didn't know. So I found like three redeeming qualities on this. So I decided to give it a 3 out of 10, but you could give it a 2 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. It doesn't matter.
Dude, I'm giving it a 0. This
A
is
0.
legitimately one of the worst overall comic issues I've read in my entire life. One of the most upsetting. And it's not for any bigger plot reason. It's just, hey, the Comics Code Authority is dead. We haven't been bought out by Disney yet. Mark Millar always tries to be an edgelord. And we're just going to make this the darkest universe possible because it's not main Marvel continuity. So why not? That was
Yeah.
just the vibe back then, and it's important
Yeah.
to understand that this is the totality of the rest of the Ultimate Universe besides what we see in Ultimate Spider-Man, because Ultimate Spider-Man is like the hopeful, likable book of the whole bunch, but like this is the universe he's living in, and these are like what all the other heroes are like,
Yeah.
and that kind of colors the environment, you know?
Yes, and that's for a second when you were talking, I was thinking, so why are we reading this? but then you were like, because it's the Ultimate Universe and we're doing Ultimate Spider-Man. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the same universe.
When he meets up with these people, or when he looks up to these people and doesn't know them fully, or um whenever there's like big crossover events that affect Spider-Man and it's like, well, this seems weird, it's because this is the sentiment everywhere else, is like these are broken, faulty people who don't deserve their powers except for him. And I will say, the Ultimates does have redeeming qualities. It can only go up from here, baby. Um, I think we will find that we like the later issues of it better. And then at some point, Spider-Man will meet the Ultimates.
Well, I'm just wondering who's going to be on this Ultimate team, because Banner is irredeemable and Pym is irredeemable. And, we didn't even touch on it, but Thor in the last issue was like this issue so I guess we're touching on it now, but he was like, the earth needs to be purified. And Captain America's like, what do you mean purified? And Thor's like, these kids are playing too much PlayStation 2 these days. And it's like, okay, now we are just kind of turning Thor into like a crazy left wing liberal who gets mad at everything, and he's kind of becoming a parody of earlier on where we were like, Thor is bringing up some valid points.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I didn't give it too much credence. And you were like, oh, I think, maybe this book is taking his side. No, they were just writing him a little too well. And I think this is them pulling back and being like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't actually support all that like hippie peace crap. We need to make it clear that he's the wackadoo in the bunch.
Yeah. I'm also really tired of Tony having green slime on him every time his helmet's off in the Iron Man suit.
Yeah, that's never really been addressed.
Okay.
But like
do you
I
have
said,
any...
I feel like if I was in that suit naked, like apparently he is in this universe, and it's just all metal, like I think I would get hot and chafe.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I don't like it, but it makes sense.
Do you have anything else for it, or should I go into issue 7?
No, I'm excited to be done with this.
Okay. Issue 7, written by Mark Millar, penciled by Brian Hitch, inked by Andrew Curry. Do you have anything else to add on that, Zach?
Did it actually say it was inked by him?
It did say those 3 things, so that's what
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. So then I'm guessing he did the inks the last time, and we just don't know who the colorist was.
So we open on St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. And Zach, if this is a funeral for Wasp, I'm gonna freak out. I'm reading my notes to you, by the way. So obviously now I know what happened, but I'm reading you my real-time thoughts. I legit might not finish the episode if she got murdered by ants while naked, hiding under the desk at the control of Ant-Man. So let's see. Okay, so where are my notes here? I must have been like out of my mind reading this. Okay,
Did you take them last night or this morning?
Last night.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so what I think is happening on the first couple pages is we're cutting back and forth between like a mass funeral / remembrance for all the people that died during Hulk's rampage, and Janet is being taken in an ambulance. So they're kind of like juxtaposing those two things. So thankfully Janet is not dead.
So the event at the St. Paul's Cathedral is like this memorial service.
Yes. And both scenes are kind of cutting back and forth, and they're being like played over the top of them is the eulogy that someone is giving for all the people that were lost, that I don't think we know who's giving it yet. Okay, so Cap's giving the eulogy, and which we do see at that time. And then we cut to a doctor speaking with Bruce Banner in his holding cell. And I'm immediately getting bad guy vibes, kind of like the doctor that comes and talks to Bucky Barnes in Civil War, but we'll see. The doctor tells Bruce that they brush everything under the rug, and the public has no idea that Bruce is the Hulk. But because of Bruce's experiment injecting himself with Steve Rogers' blood, his Hulk blood cells don't seem to be going away like they usually do. They're just now a constant in his body. So he kind of insinuates that Bruce is like locked in the holding cell. And
did you notice something else about that? I think that maybe insinuates the reason why you thought he was turning red for a while, and why he was originally described as green, but now moving forward, the Hulk is gray.
Because they're kind of like more one person now.
I just think he
Or,
messed with his cells. I think he changed,
oh, okay.
himself and the Hulk and the relationship between himself and the Hulk. So now the Hulk
Okay.
doesn't even look the same as he used to.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't put that together. So Bruce kind of gets angry and he's like, I'm not spending the rest of my life in this holding cell. Get me a real doctor to look at my blood. I want Hank Pym looking at my blood. And they're like, well, he's gone.
Well,
So he's informed that Hank Pym disappeared. So back at the Remembrance, Fury and Betty are talking about Cap delivering the eulogy. And I said the words, that was Betty's fault. But now I'm maybe confused about what I was referring to when I said that.
well, she does
Um,
something pretty awful.
what does she do? What am I
So
thinking
keep
of?
in mind, she's like the PR person, and she says something like, I didn't think it would be a good call, but that really did work, having
Yeah,
Captain America give the eulogies. These suckers really went for all that stars
yeah,
and stripes bull crap. And they're
yeah.
like
That
still on the steps of the cathedral around all these kids who just like lost their parents or something. And he's like, show a little decorum, Betty.
Yeah, that's what I meant by fall. I should have said that was Betty's decision that Cap was the one to give the eulogy. And I said here, I kind of hate Betty and Fury. All they care about is PR. Like, does Fury even want to save the world? And Zach, do you watch The Boys?
Yeah.
I said this seems more like he's Stan Edgar and he just wants to run Vought International. And all he cares about are the points up or down and are they popular or not popular. And it's just like, I should say he seems more like Homelander because really that's all Homelander cares about. But that's what it reminds me of, like that world where the superheroes suck.
And that came out of a similar, sentiment as like the Ultimate Marvel universe of like, oh wait, it actually rules having, these superheroes that are bad. What?
Yeah, but there have to be some good guys present in your story.
When Betty was like saying that, it kind of reminded me of a scene in Hot Rod when like the EMT workers are like leaving the house because the stepdad like had some episode with his heart. And as they're
Oh my
walking
God,
down the
I
steps of the
remember.
house, they're like, I give the old man a week to live. And it's like they say that as a plot point because Rod is walking into the house and he's supposed to hear that and the audience is supposed to hear that so they know what the stakes are. But this guy says, I give the old man a week to live. And the other one just looks at him and is like, that's really what does he say?
I don't know I don't know exactly what he says, but I can picture. I love that movie. I think it's like as far as rewatch value and like comedy value, there is no funnier movie than Hot Rod.
Even
if,
like
if if anyone listening has not seen Hot Rod, it is so funny. I just love it.
yeah, even like the little throwaway lines like that you wouldn't notice if you're just like half watching it, they're all gold. Because the other guy
Uh,
calls him out on it. He's like, that's really insensitive, Greg. And that's the only thing those characters do.
oh man, gosh, if we watched Hot Rod and I wrote down like every single joke that makes me laugh out loud to it, it would be like the entire movie. It's just so funny. That movie, Out Cold, and Zoolander are what I think are the three funniest movies.
I cannot rewatch comedy movies. Like, I have to wait like 5 or 10 years before they're funny again. I just watched Dodgeball for probably the first time since middle school. And I still was like, oh yeah, I know what's about to come. Like, oh, that was kind of funny, but like, you know,
Yeah.
I couldn't watch it again and find it funny. Hot
D-
Rod, I legitimately watch 5 or 6 times a year and I laugh in the same spots even knowing what's about to happen.
It's so funny just to like praise Andy Samberg and that whole Lonely Island crew. That is funny. Popstar is such an underrated movie that I
I
also think is
just
hilarious.
I just watched Popstar for the first time last night.
Really?
Yes. I had started it before and like not on my own choosing, but like, oh, I can't finish this. I gotta set it down. And I came back to it and finished it last night and I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. Definitely no
um,
hot rod, but still
no,
pretty
no,
good.
definitely not, but still better than your average comedy.
Yes. I loved those guys on SNL growing up.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was gonna say. And all the every Lonely Island like skit or sketch is also just hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still outside the remembrance, and Bucky and Gail show up, and they thank Steve for saving everyone, and Steve is like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know you guys knew someone who passed away in the Hulk tragedy. And they're like, we didn't. It's just something that you have to do. And I'm like, okay, there's a nicer way to say that, but we just came to pay our respects. Any number of
Really
other
insensitive,
ways.
Greg.
Yeah. um and then gosh, I just made the comment like 3 minutes ago that the boys is great because they're still good people in the show. There are good characters. And
They're
in
just not
this,
the superheroes.
yeah. And in this, even Gail is like, oh my gosh, the grandkids watch the fight every single day. It's just it's so great. And you know, it kind of made me think about, well, that's also really insensitive
Yeah.
because
They're
but
selling bootleg DVDs of the Hulk fight.
yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, it sold 15 million copies," which A is funny because like less than 10 years after this, the Avengers movie is going to sell a boatload of tickets and physical copies and stuff. But also it's like imagine like kids watching.
Like 9/11.
That's we keep coming back to it, but that is the comparison here. It's the same era, it's the
Yeah.
same city, the wreckage looks the same. The way they're talking about like the relief shelter and these memorials and all this stuff, like in this universe, I don't think 9/11 happened. We didn't see it happen. They didn't comment on it. The Hulk attack is their analogy to it. And all of these heroes that are directly involved are just being so awful about it. And it's being like marketed as like an exciting thing.
Yeah. Um, this also did make me chuckle a little in my head because after the Avengers movie came out, I had a little nephew, Brock, that was like 4, and he would come over because my mom would babysit him, and we would watch the Hulk scene where he transforms and then beats up everyone a million times a day. It was like his favorite thing in the world. So as she's saying this, I'm like, that's really insensitive. That's real people. But also Brock and I did the same thing to the movie when it came out.
Right, but that it wasn't
I
a
know of
documentary.
course it's not the same, and it's not Hulk going on the rampage. It's him destroying aliens. Like, of
And
course it's different, but it made me laugh in my head a little bit.
and the Avengers movie goes very far out of its way to kind of present it as, oh, there was some property damage, but you know, these
Yeah,
few good guys were able to stop most deaths across the whole city.
yeah. And then Gail makes the comment that like, well, it's so good that the kids have a good role model now, like you, Captain America, not like Spider-Man or those mutants. And that's where I put in my notes, why is everyone being racist as hell in this comic? Even the good guys, even the good people in this world are bad people. Like, um,
I think maybe there's some value there that it's like, this person, Gail, who we don't know much about, but isn't supposed to be a bad character. Like she was engaged to Captain America. Like even she is in the wrong about like social issues, and it's like we know people like that, in our lives, but still you're right, it does come across very weird and in the same atmosphere as like the heroes being literal like pieces of trash. It's not a good look. There should be
Yeah.
some just genuine good people here.
Yeah. Um, so this isn't important, but I wrote it down. Gail starts flirting with Steve a little bit. She says, "You look good, Steve." And he says, "You too, Gail." And it's weird because she's like 80 and Steve Rogers is the most handsome, most
Is
fit,
also
most
80.
perfect. But he's not really. And Zach, if you were a Captain America who is the best at everything and like the best looking, and you would not be flirting with an 80-year-old woman. I don't care who she is. It just wouldn't be the case. So I didn't like it. Cap is called away. Do you want to join in? Or
I was going to say, I think he's
being
being nice. Like,
nice?
he's obviously not
Okay.
about to make a move on her
In
right
front
there
of
in front of
Bucky.
Bucky. He's making her feel
But
special.
Gail is about to make a move right in front of Bucky.
Yeah, I mean, she thinks she has a chance.
Yeah. So Cap is called away by Fury because of a new situation. They go to see Janet in the hospital, and she has huge bites on her that they have figured out are like ant bites. And, Stark kind of puts it together that, like, well, they're like, but ants' bites are small. And Stark's like, well, then she must have been like in her wasp form when all this happened. So a neighbor heard the fight happen. So they know that Hank is responsible for it. And he was spotted in a baseball cap with a duffel bag leaving the house in the middle of the night. And Fury is like, we designed Giant Man to be an action figure. He's not supposed to do stuff like this. And I just don't like Fury. I'm just going to come back to me not liking Nick Fury. So we cut to the Empire Diner, which I looked up, and it is a real diner in New York.
I think this might also be where Mary Jane works in the first Spider-Man movie.
Really?
I don't know if that's right, but it looks like it.
Let's say it is, because that's a good Easter egg. So Tony, Betty, and Stark are sitting and talking. Stark can't believe what happened. He said all Hank ever did was talk about how happy he was and how much he loved Janet. And Betty is kind of and this is the first this conversation, besides the fact that Stark is laughing about it the whole time through and he's being kind of insensitive, it is the first real and like well done description of abusive relationships, I think, that they have. Because Betty is talking about how this was all it was in college, also. Like Hank would, be all like lovey dovey, and then Janet would come in with chunks of her hair missing. And I don't like the conversation, obviously, but I think that this is a better way to talk about like abuse than showing it in like such an awful way.
And
I don't
it almost like when we say showing it in an awful way, it's not it almost feels like voyeuristic. Like it feels
Yeah, that's a good word.
like, you're there in the room with them and it's like, "Oh, look at how, you know, like look at how violent that is." Isn't and it's like
Well, and I also think
it's
that
so insensitive to her.
there's definitely like something extra like bad about the fact that Janet's naked when it's all happening.
Yes,
Like
there's a level of it, that too.
um so Betty tells Steve and Tony Stark about just like she kind of like runs down the list of like multiple times in college where Hank was abusive, and it's pretty graphic descriptions of like what's happening. And a woman walks up to flirt with Tony and ask for an autograph, and he turns her down. He's like, I normally, but but we're all in a pretty bad mood right now. So that's how you know it's bad. Tony's turning down women.
I think he
And
was pretty nice about it, though. He said,
no,
"Darling, I'm so sorry. Normally I'd be delighted, but you caught me at a monumentally bad time here." Like,
I
I'm
know. So
like,
that's like Tony Stark being like as sad as he can get, I think.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I was just in a bad mood, so I'm giving them all like a little extra shade.
You almost want them to see this as big of a deal as you do, to
Yeah.
humanize them. Because if they just brush past this and are like, you know, well, it's between them, that's a marital issue, blah, 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 you would hate these characters so much more.
Yeah. Um and we are kind of getting these panels of either Steve sitting next to like Tony listening to everything, or we even get just like a panel of Steve's face, and we can kind of tell that he is like stewing over this. He's just got like a quiet anger to him.
Yeah,
And
the art is very good because if you could miss it, you could just be paying attention to the people who are talking, but it's significant that he's
yeah,
not talking and he's
it
looking
would
down and his face is in shadow. The other two are pretty bright. They went out of their way to shadow him.
and Tony asked Janet why she never talked about this before, and because she should have known that this would leave them open to a disaster on the Ultimates, which is, of course, what Tony cares about. And she said she tried to just like put it all out of her mind, and she convinced herself, it wasn't anyone's business but theirs. And then, just then, we see the news, and they're asking questions about the arrest warrant for Hank Pym for spousal abuse, and Tony says, "Well, it's everyone's business now, darling." And then, kind of out of nowhere, we cut to a full page drawing of Thor drawn in like a Christ like way with doves flying all around him. And it does look kind of cool, but it also comes out of nowhere, and it's pretty like tonally different. So we are back at the Triskelion, and Fury is talking to Black Widow over the radio, and Thor is floating in the background of Nick Fury's office with doves all around him again. So that's where he is. And it looks like it's unknown to Fury because he's behind him.
And real quick, this is the first time we've seen Black Widow outside of that team up issue, right?
Yes, it is.
So
Yeah,
if
I think
someone's
so.
just reading the Ultimates, they might not know who she is at this point.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on that, or were you just?
I mean, we've covered her in this podcast,
Yeah,
but I just
okay.
think it's significant that this is her first appearance, 7
Yeah.
issues into the series.
Because where was she? We know Hawkeye wasn't at the party because he had date night or something, and he couldn't get off.
He
What
was
was
on
Black?
vacation.
He was on vacation. What was Widow doing? Do they say?
I think
don't
she
even
was on
know.
a mission or something. I think she's a
Okay.
little bit more business, but
Yeah.
yeah, so this is her first appearance, and then we still haven't even met Hawkeye.
Well, so I'm gonna take some liberties with what I assume they're talking about because they don't go into detail. So Zach, if I'm wrong, just cut me off. So Black Widow's talking to Fury, and she says that her and Hawkeye also have some bad news on their end because whatever they're doing, which I believe from context, they might be looking for like scrolls, which are shape shifting aliens that can like take the place of people. And she says there's over 500 sleeper agents that they need to find. And Fury offers the help of the Ultimates, and Black Widow laughs him off. And this is why I think they're dealing with scrolls, because she says, let's leave the extraterrestrial threats to the big boys, meaning her and Hawkeye. Like they are the big boys, they're the real like people who are getting stuff done here. So that's why I thought maybe that's what they were looking for, scrolls. But they don't ever mention that fully.
I'll just say there's more than one type of alien in Marvel mythos.
Okay. It was kind of the sleeper agents also that made me think it was that, because I was like, they could be taken. But okay, it sounds like I'm probably not right. But they're looking for some sort of alien sleeper agents. So Thor had a meeting with Fury, and it looks like everyone was supposed to have a meeting with Fury. Thor apologizes for being late, and Fury's like, it's no big deal. Stark is also like late, and I think we're still waiting on Rogers. But Thor says he was fighting his evil half brother Loki along with the Midgard serpent. And they're waiting for Cap, who's also running late. And Fury's like, man, this isn't like Captain America to let someone down. And then we see Cap sneaking into the satellite room, and he is tracking down Hank Pym's location on it. And Cap tracks down Pym to a pub in Chicago, and go kick his butt, Captain America. I wrote here, literally the only good character in the run. And I was hoping that something like this would happen. When he was stewing in the diner, I was like, I hope that they show Cap just going and just giving him what for, as Captain America would say.
Mess him up.
Yeah.
I want to know if it was as easy as computer. Where's Hank Pym?
I know.
Computer, enhance.
So did Fury already know who that was? Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah, Captain America is not doing some hacking in the satellite room. He goes and asks for the location of Hank Pym, and it's given to him.
Everyone else is like, oh no, this is a PR disaster. But they're not going to get him.
Yeah, that actually is funny. It's because they aren't even considering tracking him down. They just don't. They're just dealing about the PR aspect of it. What did you think?
I don't know. Do we have a scale for this one?
I think
it made sense for the last one to not have a scale, but
that's good. My scale wasn't very good on the last one, anyways. So
what's this?
Okay, I said this is out of 10 doves flying around Thor.
Okay, because there was quite a bit.
There were a lot,
and it's wild because it's like, I don't know that New York is famous for its doves. Like, if anything, it should have been fat pigeons.
He has to be bringing them around with him.
He's like Joe Bluth.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's awesome.
Okay, so out of
we demand to be taken seriously. That's like what the Ultimates are just saying every time they show up.
So out of 10 dead pigeons in bags in Thor's refrigerator, I give this one about 6, because it's still coming out of and responding to all the unhappiness from last time, but you can kind of see that the plot resolution is about to come with Hank Pym getting what he deserves, and everyone is still pretty awful.
I think
it's not a good 6. It might be a 5.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be a little more criticizing to it. So I'm upset that we're now moving into a third issue with this spousal abuse stuff. This is a superhero comic book. So, when it went into the second issue, I was already like, okay, we have to deal with this for another issue, but they need to wrap it up somehow. So, and when it ended, still going into this third issue, I'm like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm just tired of it. So, why did they choose to do this? Has the writer of this comic ever given an interview on backstory to why they did this? They wrote these great characters in this way, and
dude, when Mark Millar interviews come up on my YouTube recommendation, I skip that. I'm like, let me listen to a creator I respect or care about.
Yeah. I said the only thing I really liked about this one was I do think Captain America is being characterized better than I liked him in the first couple issues where he was back in 1945. I just feel like he's the only one in these comics with any type of moral ground. And even if he goes and is just beating up people with his fists, which is not always the way to solve your problems, at least he had some anger towards Banner for everything that happened. And at least now you can see that he really has some problems with what Hank Pym has done, not just in that it's going to hurt the team. He has some real moral problems with what has happened. And so I think he is the redeeming aspect of this run so far for me. Which, he's my favorite character in general. So maybe that was just always going to be the case. But I gave this one another 3 out of 10. It's a better 3 out of 10 than the last one, but didn't like it enough to give it a 4. And I it still had a couple good things in it, so I gave it a 3.
I almost feel like I need to go down to a 4 because I'm realizing I've given Bendis Ultimate Spider-Man issues 6s in the past, and nothing he's written has been remotely this bad.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
I
so
don't
those
know.
were fun. Maybe we'll get to see Hank Pym get his butt kicked in the next episode by Captain America.
It won't make any of this okay or worth it, but it needs to happen still.
Yeah. And they need to not be put back on the team. We need to not see a redemption arc for these two. I don't want Zach to give me any hints on what's going to happen, but there needs to not be a redemption arc for Banner and Hank Pym in this.
Yeah. So
Um,
on a happier note, I thought that this episode would be a lot shorter, and I prepared something as kind of a palate cleanser. And listeners of the pod will know that I am eagerly awaiting the NFL draft. Football, comics, and punk rock are probably my 3 loves. And the month of April, I'm always a nervous wreck because 2 of those are very, well,
and
honestly,
that's
all of
not
them.
just because it's tax time.
No.
That's a slight stolen joke from my favorite podcast, The Weekly Planet, where they always say it's the spookiest time of the year around Halloween, and then they say, and I'm not just talking about tax season.
No, April is honestly exciting for all 3 of those fronts because the big summer crossover events are just around the corner with comics, and then the NFL draft happens, and then it's when you start getting close to the Riot Fest announcement coming out. So I am always a nervous wreck with just excitement in April, and the NFL draft is next week, and I put on my scouting cap and I came up with comparisons to some of the prospects in this year's class to Marvel characters that we've encountered since we've been doing this pod.
Oh, I love this.
So, just gonna
Now
run.
I think I would like to be involved in this also. So you have made up your people. So can I try to make them up on the spot as we go through it, each one?
Oh, I'll name a player and you say what character?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
You might not know
And
all of them.
I also don't know the players nearly as well as Zach either. I
Yeah.
know them on a very surface level.
I'll let you jump in. I'll say the player's name and I'll see if you can guess who you think they are.
And these are characters we have encountered in our readings.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So Indianapolis's own DeWand Jones, offensive tackle from Ohio State.
Oh, I don't know who these. I don't know.
That's okay.
I thought we were gonna do the 4 quarterbacks.
They're on here. So I said he is Doc Ock because he has the longest arms in NFL history.
Okay, that's a good one.
Deuce Vaughn, running back, Kansas State.
I don't know him either.
He is the Wasp because he is the smallest player, the shortest player ever measured at the NFL Combine.
Okay, these are good. I'll stop you if I know somebody. How about that?
You'll know this next one. Will Levis, quarterback, Kentucky.
I am going to say for Will Levis, I'm going to say Shang-Chi because he's huge and ripped and he's probably he just seems like he's built like that. He's eating banana peels. He's doing his thing.
Putting mayo in his coffee.
Yeah.
I said he is Craven the Hunter because he's obsessed with his
better.
craft.
That's
he's
better.
Yoked, and we don't know if he's for real.
That's way better.
CJ Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State. I said he's the Punisher because he calls himself a ball placement specialist and he's accurate like a marksman.
Okay, I like that. That's a good one.
All right. Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, Georgia. I said he's the Hulk because he's an unstoppable force of pure muscle. His teammate, Nolan Smith, edge, Georgia. He like blew up the combine. And so I said he's Iron Man. He's got all the tools and he's a hard hitter who can also reach Mach 5 speed.
Okay.
And then, this one, Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama.
I'm going to say this one is Peter Parker Spider-Man because, he's like a little smaller than what you'd expect, but he's ready for the pros.
Okay. I chose a different shorty. I said he's Wolverine. He's the best at what he does, and what he does is cut defenses to bits. He may be small, but don't underestimate his killer instinct.
Oh, man, you prepared this so well. I'm just going to let you keep going.
I spent an hour at my desk one day this week typing this up, getting no work done.
That's awesome.
Bijan Robinson, running back, Texas. He is Captain America. He's the prototype, the type of running back every other running back aspires to be. It's like he was made in a lab to attain athletic perfection.
Nice. I was wondering who you were going to say for him.
Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida. He's the Green Goblin. He's everything I just said about Bijan Robinson's athleticism, except bigger, stronger, faster, and can throw literal fireballs. And then finally, Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver, Ohio State, is our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's got short area burst and agility and sticky fingers.
Nice. That's a good one. Ooh, well, that was fun.
Yeah. Good little palate cleanser.
Yeah.
You have something else?
I do have a couple things. Too. And no, maybe even more. But one of them was I thought about putting something together and typing something up because it was actually kind of a monumentous occasion a couple days ago, Zach. And I just want to take a minute and appreciate someone. So
yeah,
let me know if you're ready for this and if you can tell what if this is a stupid thing or a serious thing based on how I'm talking. But Elon Musk launched a rocket a couple days ago, and I think it's amazing to see what such a smart and capable person. I mean, honestly, Zach, did you ever think in your life we would see a rocket go up into the air? I mean, I know it exploded like right after it launched, but we might even be able to go to the moon one day with the help of Elon Musk and all the great things he's doing. I mean, could you imagine that? They never would have dreamed of something like that 50 years ago. A rocket. Anyway, I think he's a great guy and he's doing great things, and I just wanted to talk about it.
Did you see he lost like $13 billion in like 2 days because
couldn't have happened to a better guy.
Tesla stock plummeted, and then they took away like the blue check marks from Twitter, and then his rocket blew up all within like 48 hours.
Oh man, he's just trying his best out there. Anyway,
that was funny.
And then I actually do have a cool thing. So it is my nephew's birthday today, and I am going to their birthday party, and he's a big Spider-Man fan, they said. So Elizabeth and I got him this Spider-Man web shooter that he can wear. It comes with like a glove, and it's got like a canister, and he can like shoot webs like Spider-Man.
Is it
Isn't that
silly
cool?
string? Or water?
webs or water. So it looks like it could do either silly
Okay,
string or water. And it comes with a thing of web fluid.
I had that
So
as a kid and I loved it. And
I want it now. I told her I think you need to get like 2 more for Zach and I.
my little nephew loves Spider-Man, and like a year or two ago, I got him that. And I remember it was like winter, and his parents lived in an apartment that they didn't have a yard or anything. He and I went out on the balcony of this apartment, and he chased me around like, and you can only go, like 4 feet this way and like 2 feet that way. He chased me around in winter, spraying me with water,
Oh
saying
my.
pew, 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 pew. And he had a Spider-Man mask on, and he was so freaking happy. And to this day, like whenever I'm having a bad day, those are like the videos I go back in my phone and watch. And it just
Oh.
picks me right up.
Oh, that was awesome. Well,
So
this little kid is going to love this, I think.
kids love that toy. That is a great toy to get any kid that likes Spider-Man.
Nice. Um, let's see. So I had the Spider-Man thing I wanted to talk about. And that was it. And my Elon Musk appreciation that I thought about writing out, but decided not to.
Well, that's good. Do we have any fan mail for
Oh
today?
my gosh. And you told me there's a new segment that you want to add. Um, here. Do you want to introduce the new segment while I am
What was
pulling
the new
up our
What's the new segment?
You told me you texted me like 4 days ago and said you have a new segment for the pod that you think I'm going to really like.
It was the NFL draft thing.
Oh,
That was the
okay.
day I was typing that
Oh,
up.
I thought you meant you had like something for like a weekly segment.
No, not ongoing, unfortunately.
Well, that's okay. Still good.
I mean, I guess we can just keep finding more football players to compare people to, but I think no one would like that as much as we do.
Yeah, I'm a bit upset Kong didn't get any love, but you know.
At a certain point, I had 10 players, and I was like, most people aren't going to know some of these guys. But, so I was like, I had to stop myself because I would have just kept going.
This is from Brick Buffett, and this is on YouTube. And also, yeah, I mean, definitely leave a comment and say how you found us, if it's YouTube or Spotify or Apple or anything like that. Brick says, I got into your podcast recently and I love it. I listen to it anytime I get the chance. Keep up the excellent work. Thank you so much, Brick.
Thank you,
It
Brick.
really does make me feel good. So send us some more comments.
Yeah. Brick, you rule. Thanks for
Yes,
listening.
Brick, you do rule. What are we doing next week? What issues?
Yes, next week we are back in Ultimate Spider-Man. We're back in Ultimate Spider-Man that matters. I've really liked the last few episodes we've done, but they weren't super continuity heavy. So we're starting a new story arc with issues 29 and 30.
29 and 30. And
I
yeah,
read
because the
ahead.
last issue we read was just like a filler issue sidetracked.
It was 2 filler issues, and then before that was the annual.
Yeah.
So it's been about a month
before
since
that, it was like the Green Goblin getting wrapped up.
It's been about a month since we finished the Goblin plot, so we're about to start another one. And last night I read ahead, and I like the arc we're about to go into. I think it's a good one.
Ooh, nice. Okay, cool. Well, I'm excited. You got anything else for the webheads?
I do not. You want to send us out?
Yep. So thank you to Ian Hickey for our music and Alyssa Seaman for our artwork. You can find us on Instagram at First Read Podcast, and you can find us on YouTube, where I always forget to look, but it's called the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man Podcast on YouTube, so you can find us there as well. See you next week for some better, not as awful issues. Bye.
Cue the music.
Oh man, that reminds me. I meant to add Hank Pym to our list of our Mount Rushmore of pieces of work.
Oh, he is the perfect fourth member.
Well, have you stopped recording this yet? You can add this in after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay, now bye, listeners. He's the perfect fourth member with Gillette and who else?
So it was Gillette and Norman Osborn and Justin Hammer.
Okay, so Hank Pym's rounding us out. So next time we meet someone who might go on that, we might have to kick someone out.
Yeah. Instead, they just go into Disney's animatronic hall of pieces of work.
That's funny.
Okay, now for real. Bye.
Bye.